Greetings, ladies and managers, and welcome to this narration of the web series There Is No Epic Lucha, Only Puns. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. 50 or 60 years before Delta, Walloon capital city, Durance could feel his brains leaking out his nose like snorted milk, but only less funny. Prince Durance, please pay attention, the old crone chided as she tapped the blackboard behind her with a ruler. At the only other desk in the room, Lendius gave him a sour look as he labored over his notebook, taking meticulous notes. Lenny was funny like that. Durance, on the other hand, he eyed the board with one eye that struggled to stay awake. The banking error is due to the Weaving Guild overcharging for cotton out of season. 2 barrels of dungeon goods degraded, causing an imbalance of the funds in the Culinary Guild. And there is likely embezzlement happening around the guards at the keep, due to the numbers simply not adding up, he said with a forced smile. Lenny seemed to stare at the board and then at his own answers before he angrily tore the paper out of his notebook and tossed it aside. Durance was an eyeball it and work out the details when it mattered sort of guy. The kingdom would be better with Lenny, really. The younger man was a stickler for rules and worrying over everything. Plus, Durance felt chills at the idea of being stuck in some throne all day while he watched knights and adventurers do exciting things. His soul practically withered at the idea. But, as his father was fond of saying, a Walloon does not choose, he does as intended. Durance was sure that was fancy talk for shut up and do what I tell you. The sun was shining so brightly, and he mentally sighed as none of that beautiful sunlight seemed to enter the gloomy education chamber. Our time is up, the old crone said, and Durance almost jumped out of the window in joy. Next, you have horse riding, debate in the hall, dueling, journeyman magic theory, and due to the Prince Durance engagement date arriving soon, dance lessons, she said with a frown aimed at Durance, who sagged lower in every word. The engagement. Durance had managed to forget about it for a whole week. He felt so bad for the lady on the other end of the arrangement. He could only imagine what hellish schedule and expectations was being set on her. Of course, matron, Lenny said, his bag bulging with the proper writing equipment, theory books, and dart shoes. Lenny planned his day out like it was fun. Durance had cheese in his pockets that he fed to the castle mice. Day and night, the 2 princes were, but Durance loved his brother and wouldn't change him for the kingdom. Leaving the education chamber, Durance nudged Lenny with a small smile. I heard the old man relented, he said, and Lenny tried to appear indifferent, but a flush of excitement spread across the boy's face. He did, dearie, he said before composing himself. I only have to do 5 years of internship with the bank, and then I can apply for my adventurer's license, he said, eyes bright. That's not so bad at all. I heard Ned Happy is easy on newcomers, even princes. Durance grinned as Lenny flushed. I have it all planned out. I'll do a few skirmishes in the royal dungeon and then head south to the shattered left. Or maybe see if I can discover a dungeon on the crown. And there's a huge patch of nothing there, Lenny said excitedly. Durance leaned back and poked one of Lenny's dance shoes that stuck out of the stuffed bag. Maybe conquer talking with girls first before you take down a dragon, he suggested. Lenny flushed, his neck turning red with embarrassment. Women are simple creatures. Give them shiny things and a place at your side, and they want for nothing more, he said, and Mother's words coming out of Lenny's mouth made Durance frown, but he didn't comment on it. The Gold Queen certainly had a way with the empathy of others. Even being Durance's mother didn't stop Durance seeing the coiling grip she had on Lenny. When people thought Durance couldn't hear, they would whisper about the Gold Queen, how she would sooner break her own teeth chewing on gold than leave a lesser one of her coins. She hadn't always been like that. Durance remembered, not much, but laughter, subtle perfume, soft spring dresses, and honest smiles. But she changed, and he knew why she changed. The Gold Queen who lost her prized treasure. Who didn't know the story by now? Durance grew up hearing it, hating the tale, and yet wanting to know every last detail. His mother wasn't always called the Gold Queen of Heverus, but because she used to be a gold-rank adventurer, a high-tier warrior. Then her partner, her third arm, her blessed blade Gama, was stolen away from her, or fled her if the stories of its power were to be believed. an oath between her and the sword that she broke when she refused to pass him on. Durance once had a nightmare because one of the knights told him that the sword screamed in a deep vault in the castle for 7 days and 7 nights straight, stuffed into a tiny case where no light could touch it. In his nightmare, Durance was the sword, and he was trapped. Now, Durance, Lenny, and the kingdom were the sword, trapped in the queen's ever-gripped hands. Then I'll swing by the silver dungeon, and if anyone has seen a talking enchanted sword, the hub community would have heard of it. Lenny was still speaking of his plans to restore their mother's sanity. The idea of Lenny being so far away, as free as the wind. It hurt, but he beamed at Lenny. You're going to be famous. I can tell already, he said, ruffling his annoyed brother's hair. Says the king-to-be, Lenny muttered. Durance just happened to walk down the wrong hallway, out of the castle and into the marketplace by total accident. Strange, really. Shame about all those fun lessons that he was supposed to be attending. Are you Prince Durance? A woman asked, boggling at him, browsing her stall. Durance shook his head. Prince Lendius, he said brightly, and the woman hummed and carried on with her business. Ah, the joys of being a twin. Identity theft was never easy. Still, she could have at least fawned over Lenny a bit. He was a prince too. Durance looked around and sighed. Verloon was its usual self. He watched the bakers go with their trays like always, the same old bread and rolls to sell. The weapon stalls were empty, as always. Every new weapon was hand-tested by the queen before being sold back to the town. Perhaps she thought that she'd find her missing weapon amongst the pots and hand axes. Durance bent down as some earnest worker cooked a strange lump of meat on a grill. And when asked what the creature was, the grinning, creepy child promised that it was the king of monsters' toe. Durance got himself a toe on a bun to go. It was chewy, but tart. He stopped to enjoy watching the familiar tan faces of Ned and Ferry sharing an ice cream and arguing over which cause to fund or civil right issue to raise. Mother didn't like those two at all. Sometimes their expressions scared Durance when they were brought up with the reforms and changes father helped enact. Some of the richest men in the kingdom, and they got a cone to share, as if they were poor children living in the gutter. Durance wanted that relationship with Lenny, one where they were always depending on one another. Eventually, Durance was drawn closer to the kingdom's gate, where it looked like some people had come to hawk wares and show off exotic gains. Walloon was one of the major cities of the main body. Durance always got to see something exciting. Moving on from the Twisted Devil and the fruit-crazy bandit, I present you now with my wildest capture yet, the man on the raised platform said, voice drawing attention with ease. The whole stage had a feeling of being set up in a few minutes, and the misaligned boards and the cheap paint, but that had a sort of charm to it, to Durance's eye. The final cage was opened to reveal not a strange bipedal creature, but what seemed like a crouching form in animal skins. This feral gill was found on Drifting Member Island, the most primal and wild of islands, and she not only survived, but is a killer of her own right. I lost 15 men trying to contain her, the man said with no obvious grief about said men. And only immature kids called it Drifting Member. Given a name by the locals that means unwanted beast, this killing machine is called Mila, the gill who sold her humanity to the king of demons just to survive on that hell island, the man said, working the crowd. He banged the cage with his cane, and the form inside rammed the bars, shaking them. A little scary, as they seemed magically reinforced. That she can be yours for only 10 silver, he yelled, and Durance narrowed his eyes. He hated slavery. No, Durance despised it. It was one of the few acts that he was actively involved in helping his father pass through the lawmakers to make it illegal. Durance only knew what it was like to be caged bird of paradise, wanted for nothing, allowed to want nothing. He could imagine the sheer nightmarish condition actual slaves went through. 15, 20, I'll give you 25. The bids started coming in, and the girl in the cage seethed from them all. Her bared teeth in no way helped her feral image. Durance was going to get in trouble. He knew it. But he was not sorry for it. After all, a Verloon does not choose. He does as intended. She'll make a fine gift to the royal prince of Durance, no? He called, and the crowd went silence. He smiled through his disgust, he felt. Only a few more weeks, and he could start punching these people instead of negotiating with them. to be free of royal chains, to rush in with a sword in hand, to free all the beasts and slaves. How his heart yearned for it. But he was a coward, a rich, influential coward. "Enjoy your gift, watch out, she bites," the courier said as he dropped the Mila's cage off on the ground. And up close he saw several areas where she had begun to hack at the metal bars with something sharp. She would have escaped on her own, it seems, but Durrance couldn't have known that. The quiet side street gave them privacy, and as soon as they were alone, he opened up the lock, tossed it aside, and stepped back. Mila inside didn't move, her unblinking eyes locked onto her. "You are free, free. You're an ass, she hissed back. "You speak common languages?" He blinked. "No, I'm just making random noises with my mouth flapper and hoping for the best," she said as she pushed the door open. She was a little taller than Durrance, which was intimidating, but also alluring in its own way. "I'm confused," he admitted, and she retrieved a hidden knife from atop a cage. "Nothing new there, I'm guessing," she grunted as she attached the knife to her hip. She turned, sniffing the air like an animal. "Slave has messed up my scent trail. He was here, and he was bidding on me, you idiot, you massive hero idiot," she said, smacking Durrance with no care for his uniform or royal adornments. It was amazing, and it hurt. "Why are you so strong?" he complained, wilting away from her smacks. "To hit big idiots like you better," she snapped. He grabbed her wrists, and she sighed. "Sorry, I'm worked up and mad," she said, taking a big intake of calming breath. Durrance let her go, and she smacked his arm again. "Damn it! I'm still mad," she complained before turning and sitting on a broken crate left outside some bar. "I thought I was saving you," Durrance pointed out, and she blew out a sigh. "I get that. And if I were a normal girl, I'd be sweet on you for it. But I've been eating gruel and acting like my mother on a full moon to get that psycho's attention, and he was going for it, which you didn't know about because you were trying to be nice." She gritted with a full set of rather sharp teeth before she gestured for him to sit on the ground before her. Durrance had never been told to sit in dirt before, and he bemusedly did so. Mila was weird, but Durrance liked how free she was with her actions. "I'm from an island a while away. You have a name for it, but we call it Sword Island," she said, and Durrance nodded. He liked it better than Drifting Member. "What is it like?" he interrupted, and she shot him an annoyed glare, but sighed when she saw his eager stare. "Lots of roaming crabs and bushfires anyway." She moved along. "A year ago, a boat filled with really stuffy snobheads came close, and we tried to be friendly, you know," she shrugged. "Threw spears at the hull, tried to rob them blind, and convinced more than a few of their sailors to live with us to get some fresh blood into the village. You know, customary greetings," she said easily, and Durrance must have missed the social customs in his lesson. Strange. It sounded far too unique to be boring. "Very welcoming," Durrance managed, drinking this all in. "We even threw in a nighttime hunting of their men to spice things up. We're a great place to visit," Mila agreed without any shame. "And people joined you?" Durrance managed to ask in a way that sounded more like scholarly curiosity than sheer disbelief. "Well, usually the ships just leave so fast that the people left behind sort of just accept that they live with us now," she admitted. "This ship was different," Mila confessed. "If you come back for your people, they can leave our island if they aren't happy. But they took my sister away," Mila said softly, and she looked down at the ground. "They came with cages and special nets, magic users that could shift their land and bring plants to life. Hunters, there were no other words for it, and it was good when it started. We thought, finally, people that get us. But then they pushed and resorted to extreme violence. We don't kill if we can help it. Dead people are no use to anyone," Mila said briskly. "My sister was to be a dungeon maiden, a caretaker of one of the dungeons on our island, to be its voice and communicate with us when it was sleeping or wanting a challenge. We could not chase those boats, we had but fishing vessels, so I waited until they came back and allowed them to take me to my sister," she explained, and Durrance swallowed once, but he refused to feel guilty. He simply didn't know. "Who took her?" he asked suddenly. If it was a nobleman or someone standing, he could perhaps allow them to carry favor with the future king in exchange for Mila's sister. It was good to be the king, or something like that. Without a word, she drew a strangely complex symbol from memory on the ground using a finger. The symbol made his eyes water due to the long hours spent in its proximity, and wanted to stab himself to escape the extreme tedium. "Your sister was sold to the wizard's tower?" he asked, trying not to sound grave in his terror. "You know of it?" Mila asked sharply, her calm eyes suddenly intense and yellowing. Durrance stood up and dusted goodness to honest dirt off his butt. How novel. Better. I can get us into it without a fuss, he said, and Mila crossed her arms, her face flat. I won't sleep with you, she said, and Durrance blinked once. That was an option? He blurted out. Mila's smile was a little predatory. I don't lay with little boys who would flush at the sight of my knees, she said easily. Durrance looked down and huffed. I can't even see your knees, just rabbit skulls you're using as shin guards. He pointed to the bone-white things on her legs. They're actually manna-rich squirrels that wandered too close to my cage one day, she explained, sounding pleased that he noticed. This girl was weird. He was almost sad to know that he'd help her out, and then they'd part ways. Smells like lonely people in here, Mila muttered, as Durrance led her to the front receptionist of the Wizard's Tower. We don't say that out loud. Wizards are fragile people, and can cry and cast fireball, Durrance said back quietly. The receptionist was a sour-faced boy with the perfect appearance of a wizard's apprentice that was stuck serving the very surly master. Deliveries are in the hall on the second on the left. New students are up the stairs and to the back. Complaints of enchanted broomsticks assault or accidental insertions of the broomstick into any orifice. Please take a seat, and a wizard will be right with you shortly, the boy intoned. Durrance noticed they had little ringed donut cushions on the chairs for said incidents. I need to inquire about a person purchased from Sword Island, Durrance said, and the boy handed him a ticket that said 1288 on it. Please take a seat, and a wizard will be with you shortly, he intoned again. The little ticket glowed, then changed itself to 1287. It took 30 seconds for it to change down to 1286. Mila lasted until 1280. To be fair, she only lasted so long because the sheer chaos of the Wizard's Tower coming and goings. Wizards came and went in all shapes and sizes. A bloated man seemed to glide along the floor with a massive coat-tail trailing behind him that slithered out of the people's paths. Another was an old man whose beard doubled as a coat. One woman was seemingly living out of her travel case. Another bright woman dragged two apprentices off by the ear for tea, one speaking in shattered left curses of the treatment. Another wizard seemed to be eating never-ending garlic bread out of a box. Mila stomped up to the desk. Please take a seat. A wizard will be with you shortly. The boy gagged as Mila dragged him over the desk. What's your name, stale one? She asked dangerously. Haldy, he whimpered. He was so small. Durrance towered over him, which meant Mila was massive. No wizard name? Durrance asked pleasantly. Haldy looked ashamed as his feet dangled off the ground by a foot. I have not yet learned enough magic to pay my way into the ceremony. Working the desk for 15 hours earns me 10 tokens. I need 5,000 tokens to access the basic ceremony, he said sadly. What is a token? Mila asked seriously, still not putting him down. A magic token is a fabricated talisman. It's just a unique creation in the tower with no practical uses in the outside world. It governs everything that we do here in the tower, Aldi said quickly. His stomach gurgled, and he looked down. A basic meal is 25 tokens. I skipped breakfast, he explained. Durrance eyeballed the tower and did some basic math. Here, he said, and gave Haldy a spare piece of cheese. If Durrance squinted, Haldy had the confidence of a mouse. Why not hunt outside? Mila sighed, dropping Haldy onto the desk with a thump. There is no money in being an apprentice. Your master governs what classes you have, whom you room with, what jobs you can and can't do, how much money you get, he listed, and blinked at their confusion. Mundane money, he said, blushing. Durrance opened his mouth, but a bunch of students walked past, eating rich meats and looking like they had all the time in the world. One of the boys, who looked like Haldy, paused. Hallie, you failed levitation again. That's an easy 100 MFTs, he said, shaking his head. Sorry, Oppie, the young boy said, looking like he might cry as the others laughed. Oof. Horrible Haldy, a horrendous mage, a girl giggled. Mila turned and actually barked at them with her teeth bared. They screamed and scattered. They suck, Durrance said, and Haldy looked confused. Who are you? He asked, and Durrance didn't want to be identified, so he shoved more cheese at the boy, who ate it gratefully, if a little confused. Please, we need to see a girl brought from the Sword Island, he said, and Mila's face turned into a hard set. Haldy bit his lip then, making sure no one was looking, and waved his hand. The ticket in Durance's hand leapt all the way to number 0004. You're really nice, sir, and it's mostly broomstick-related issues all day, and, not the accidental kind, he grimaced. He turned to Mina. I like your northern manner-enriched squirrel shin carts. Looks like 2 males, and big ones. He complimented her awkwardly. Mina's face lit up as the number counted down to 0002. Durance was sure they were joking now. They were clearly rabbit skulls. He hoped. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps. Bitmori, Terran on Air, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lightsjock, Dragzoon WRE, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian. Thank you.